This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Warren, Medical Gear Outfitters, and Colby Valve.
Off-Road Podcast, episode 377, Brennan's Garage.
Tonight, Aaron throws some shade, Jeremy plays hooky again, and Ben leaves a skid mark.
Welcome to the Off-Road Podcast, a podcast about everything off-road. We cover the news, review products, and interview people in the off-road industry. Your hosts tonight are Aaron, and my name is Ben, and we are joined by Brennan Metcaft. And welcome to the show.
The Weekend Review is brought to you by Medical Gear Outfitters. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting to have a casualty on the trail? Check out medicalgearoutfitters.com to get straightened out. Medical Gear Outfitters has everything you need, whether you're going out for the day or traveling on a year-long expedition. Head over there to get off-road specific kits that meet all of your needs. And while you're there, make sure you use Off-Road Podcast for 10% off.
We got Tim in the comments already saying the Jeep guy couldn't make it again, huh? Typical. Yep, because he broke down.
Yep.
Broke down on the way
That's
to
what
the
happens. The Jeep guys aren't nearly as reliable as the non-Jeep guys or something.
Oh boy, starting already.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess I should say I did not need any medical assistance this week. I've been good.
That's good.
But
That's good. I was wondering if we're going to need to buy you a life alert or have them come on as a sponsor.
You know, that would be a good one. Though I am sick or something. I don't know. Something's up with me. So who knows? I may need it in the middle of the night. Actually, I'll be sleeping with the humidifier next to me tonight. So hopefully I don't
Not
have
good.
pneumonia.
Well, maybe it was from your welding or something over the weekend. Maybe you got some toxic metals or paint fumes from painting. What were you welding and painting?
What was it? I don't know. What does that look like? That looks like a piece of flat metal.
How come your rig's on jack stands?
It's not on jack stands. Those are ramps. Those are ramps so I can fit under it because I'm fat.
You were able to drive up those ramps?
Yeah, barely.
The Toyota made it up the ramps? Oh, good.
Yeah, Toyota made up the ramps and all the way up to Maltby.
Good. Well, it looks like you made some progress on your skid plates. So are the skid plates all the way on, front to back, skidded all the way up?
No, so there's the front one. Here's the
Okay.
back one. And herein lies my problem. Those bolts are rounded. That's on one side. Here's the other side. They're rounded. And,
How come they're rounded? How come they're
because,
rounded?
I don't know, because the previous owner. And you see here,
It's not hold on. It's not from off-roading and grinding them into rocks because you didn't have skid plates.
No,
I don't know.
not.
That totally looks like a skid.
That one
damage.
might be me. That one might be me. But this is where my problem is right here. Is the other ends of both of those are the bolts snapped and they welded them on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, those are the cross member stabilizers, I think it's from. Yes, it is probably from the ditches, Tim. So I'm going to have to like grind off those welds and then
Piece of cake.
Piece
That'll
of
come
cake.
right off.
And then I'm going to probably have to nut cert these ones because it's, if you look at the back of the skid plate here, those two long skinny ones, that's where they attach. And
Gotcha.
those supports come off, or I could leave them on, but they're going to come off because if I have to weld them on, re-weld, no, not happening.
I'd fish a nut plate up through that hole.
Yeah, I might be able to get a nut plate in there. That wouldn't be a terrible idea.
I think Dennis has. Oh, I know Dennis has a nut zert kit. In fact, you may have borrowed it from him before. So,
actually, we nut certed my
Possibility.
front skid plate bolts. I did 2 of them. I've actually got to do another one, and I actually have a nut cert tool kit, so I'll nut cert it myself. I've got the right ones. They're M8s by 1.7 or 1.5
something. Yeah.
You guys want a little nut cert trick?
Yeah.
So 3M panel bond adhesive.
Uh-huh.
Use that on nut certs.
That'll
Okay.
help them from spinning.
A lot.
All
Hmm.
right.
It makes them pretty much like welded in. Get the closed back ones if you can.
So
That way you can't get the
3M
goo on the backside.
3M what ones?
It's panel bond adhesive. It's like what they use to put sheet metal parts together now, aluminum cars, all that kind of stuff. But it's basically like super epoxy, but it bonds to clean metal. Like it'll break the metal before the bond breaks.
I
And
love
it makes
it.
nut certs work awesome.
Yeah, I've got currently 2 nut certs in my front. The cross member right there, they've just got these like tack welded in little nuts, and they always break. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna nut cert this time, and if it spins, I'll cut it and pop it out and do another one.
Yep, that or nut plate on the back is what I would go with.
Nice.
Tim's full of help. He's just suggesting JB weld it.
Well, yeah, it's the transmission skid. It's forever life fluid, right? So never gonna need replaced, even after 1 million miles.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, so I didn't realize it was only 2 skid plates.
so it's so the front skid plate used to be my 2 factory skid plates.
Mm-hmm.
To the engine, and then from midway to the rest of the back of the engine, and then the other skid plate is the transmission skid. It goes between the 2 cross members. And then Pete's got a buddy who has a gas tank skid,
Uh-huh.
and that's next,
Okay.
because
Gotcha.
we've still got that nice dent going across the hole from me driving bad
Again.
as always. But it was bad because of the smoke. So Pete lives up near where the Sultan fires are right now, and that's gotten a little active and it's moved south. It was raining ash at one point, and I was like, I'm done. We'll call it for the day. I won't finish. I've got the front skid plate. I got the important one on, and I can go wheel again and feel comfortable. So, and it's
But you always had front skid plates.
No, I haven't had skid plates on for like 2 years.
The factory? Oh, you took the factory ones off?
Dude, they were crinkled tinfoil by the time I had to cut them off.
Okay.
Yeah, they were bad. I couldn't get them on or off. I had to
Gotcha.
cut them off.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I assumed that they were still on there.
Oh no.
I assumed they were still on there, and that's why you drove the way you drove. So you
No.
just drove that way anyways.
I just drove that way anyways. Full send, my friend. Full send.
Yes. Yeah.
No, well, you remember when we went snow camping, what was it, 2 years ago, and like the bolt had come off and it was like folded under?
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
got one like that. I've got one like that under my Nissan. So it's still 50% protected because it folded like turned a square into a triangle.
Yeah.
So you're still kind of protected.
Yeah. Well, no, the rest of the front came off.
I see. I see.
So yeah. But yeah, skid plates are welded. I did some welding. Pete taught me the ways.
Good.
We had fun. It was adult sleepover, hung out and did the skid plates. So yeah. What about you, Aaron?
I haven't touched my rig, but I did work on my shop. I got the back and one of the sides, the metal siding installed, and it goes up about 13 feet, basically 13 feet, about 12 or 13 feet up, and then the next 3 feet is going to be the clear plastic. So I got to get the lower metal on. So that's what I'm working on right now, is getting the rest of the metal on my shop.
Do you have to do an insulation first?
No, you put the insulation in later.
Okay.
So
because
I don't have any interior.
Some of the insulation kits I've seen for those, you like wrap it on the outside,
Yeah.
and then you put up your walls.
No, my roof is like that, and my roof is insulated with that kind of stuff, but not the
Not the walls.
not the walls. The walls would get regular bad insulation. So,
Oh, nice.
but beyond that, I think I mentioned that school started back up, and so I am absolutely inundated with homework. This week, I'll probably top 10 hours of homework, and next week is almost as heavy of a week of homework. So,
Gotta love homework, right?
yeah. So, and I mean, some people might say, "Oh, that's not a lot of homework. That's only like less than 2 hours a day if you just do it every single day of the week." But I can't do it every single day of the week. I got a life that I'm also trying to live. So, lots of schoolwork. Yeah. How about you, Brennan? Have you done anything off-road related in the past week or so?
I just got back from Sand Hollow for 5 days.
Awesome.
So we do try to do a couple bigger trips a year. That was one of them this year. Did the Rubicon this year, Easter Jeep pretty much every year because it's close. Yeah, so that was good. I mean, the weather was amazing over there this time of year. It was 90, sunny, great. So
Was
good.
it
How far?
was that just after Trail Hero ended when you got there?
Exactly. Right after.
That sounds planned.
Yep.
How far of a trip is it for you to get there?
Just about 400 miles, I think 385. So 6-7 hours.
Okay.
It's not too bad. Just right along the Arizona, Utah border. I just kind of drive right across that. So it's not too bad.
Gotcha.
It was a good trip. Did some new stuff. Didn't break anything major.
It sounds like it. It sounds like an amazing place, and we're gonna have to get down there someday.
One of these days.
Yeah.
It is. It's such a different use model than we're used to anywhere in the country. I mean, it's just a massive off-road park that's catering exactly towards rock, sand, hardcore off-road trails. I mean, it's really amazing what they've done for development there in the last 10 years ish or so, I think. But it's just growing by leaps and bounds. The trail systems, the community support, the surrounding areas are starting to develop trails even outside Sand Hollow Park itself.
Rich Klein's been really big on that. Because we had him on the first year of Trail Hero. I think it was actually when my middle son was about to be born.
It's amazing what they're doing with the BLM down there. It's just a completely different relationship than I've seen anywhere else in the country. It's the opposite of anything else I've seen. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's definitely, it sounds like a lot that could be learned from that around the nation.
So I've been to Moab, and you got to there's a couple trails like right in the area. Then you got to drive really far to get to the next one or the next one. And there might be a system out there somewhere.
Right.
At Sand Hollow, are they just kind of clumped together? You don't have to drive as much.
The main park is definitely concentrated. I think last I heard that not just in the park, but in the close area was 150 different trails that have been GPS now. And then in the park itself, it has to be probably 40 or more now. And it's 10,000 acres. So it's a big park, I think. But it's, definitely, you're not doing those big desert drives like you do typically in Moab. It's much more condensed, obstacle to obstacle too. The trails aren't, a whole bunch of bumpy, mild stuff with one good obstacle and then a whole bunch of bumpy, mild stuff and one good obstacle. It's more condensed, just different, not better or worse. It's just different.
Sure. Okay.
And you can run a lot. I think you can run a lot more trails in a day in Sand Hollow if you can, not break down or anything. It is getting kind of almost hard to keep all the trails straight because there's so many trails. There's always new trails and there's always side obstacles and optional stuff. And so there's definitely been a big push down there for more GPS style mapping. So you kind of have an app on your phone or your tablet, and you just follow that, because the trails just crisscross and go over each other a lot. But
Okay.
there's tons of, and the quality of the trails is just amazing. I mean, there's so many different levels of stuff. I mean, everything from just playing in the dunes, sand, easy, fun, to, I think, stuff that's never been driven without assistance, period. Buggies, trail breaker type stuff.
Wow.
Well, it's always nice
I
to have
just-
something where it's got a lot of everything for everybody.
I just looked it up, Ben, and it's 1,100 miles from my house. So it's a little bit of a drive. It's going to be a little farther for you. Not much, but
Yeah, John Matthews is just down there too.
yeah.
I want to go.
Yeah.
Don't
We'll
we all?
get there. Yeah, we'll get there. We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to patriotpatch.co and check out their selection of great patches, shirts, cleaning mats, signs, and stickers. You can also join the Patch of the Month Club for $15 and receive a patch, matching sticker, and artist proof each month. Did you see they just released some of their classic patches, but they're embroidered?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of like, oh yes, finally some, and then it helps with prices on those too, I believe, right?
I didn't look at the price at all. I didn't look at the price. So, and then just a reminder, we've got our patches for $13 shipped for one, and any additional patch after that is just $10. So reach out to us or send us some money through PayPal, offroadpodcast@gmail.com. Or maybe there's not a .com when you do the PayPal thing, but offroadpodcast@gmail.
Yep. And
Through PayPal.
Glow.
Yeah. Glow in the dark. The lumen lockers.
So you saw that message that the guy hadn't got his patches back?
I did. Yeah.
So I looked at my email and I found the tracking on it, and I messed up on the customs paperwork.
Uh-oh.
And it's getting sent back to me. So I'm going to ship out a new one to him tomorrow.
Ouch.
Yeah, I was a little upset with myself. I put some wrong stuff on the customs paperwork.
I
Oh,
don't
no.
know why they make that so hard.
Right? It's like
it's
I need
really
to fill out
difficult.
3 pages of paperwork for
2 PVC patches. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, and
Oh,
for a small
man.
business, it's even worse. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
stop, honestly. I direct most international customers to just use a freight forward or a reship service. Sadly,
Mm.
I mean, they just make it. I've had too many things go missing, and don't know if you got it, don't know if you didn't. It's a really headache. It's a shame.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get that shipped out tomorrow morning.
That's a
But-
bummer. I assume you let him know.
No, I've not yet. It just popped into my head when we were talking about the patches. Because
Oh,
when I walked out in the garage to start working on the show tonight is when I found that. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll shoot him a message tonight. But I figured I'd say it here publicly that stuff can happen.
Well, hopefully he's watching live and he'll hear it here first.
Yep.
Have tire troubles ever left you deflated? Colby Valve has got you covered. Ever have a valve stem leak? Colby Valve makes reusable and easily replaceable valve stems that don't require you to remove your tire from the wheel. They work with your off-road rig, ATV, side-by-side, commuter vehicle, or even your tractor. Never be left stranded again because of a busted valve stem. They also have a tire repair kit for those punctures that keep you away from doing your favorite thing, wheeling. Make sure to check out colbyvalve.com or ask for them at your local off-road products store.
I actually had to pull out mine when we were at the dunes.
Yeah.
My tire repair kit, yeah. One of my valve stems, the tip got bent. And I couldn't deflate or inflate or anything.
Interesting.
So I had to.
Were you running without valve caps and you got some junk in there?
Yeah, that would probably be it. Some dumbass. Yeah, so I did that, and but thankfully I have that tire repair kit, and it's got valve stems to replace because that's the smart thing to do. And then, of course, you can always use it for your weed sprayer too, and have a air powered weed sprayer instead of working those arms and so yeah.
Have you ever seen Colby valves before, Brennan?
Yeah, I actually carry one or two.
Good.
I'm a pretty big tire repair versus gigantic spare tire person. My vehicles are small, and a spare tire, when you get in those big sizes, just takes up so much room. I've definitely made a big effort to try and investigate other ways to fix tires, or multiple tires. I mean, a spare tire only fixes one or two issues, and then you're kind of stuck. So I find a tire kit, expensive tire kit, to be honest, but it's still much smaller and lighter than a full size spare per se.
Yeah. Yeah. Not the $6 Walmart special for sure.
No.
Here you get 4 plugs and some goop and some plastic handles that'll break in your hand.
Yeah. Well, we got some news tonight. Last week we didn't have much in the news cycle. We're kind of scraping the bottom this week. We got something, but it's still, I feel like we're scraping the bottom here. But so the first one is from Autoblog, and it's about the Ford Bronco with the 2.3 EcoBoost is getting a little performance enhancement. So you can purchase something called the Performance Calibration Kit, and it takes your 2.3 EcoBoost from 300 horsepower, 325 torque to 330 horsepower and 385 torque. So you get 30 extra horsepower, 60 extra torque, which is not bad. And it also apparently helps improve the throttle response throughout the rev range. I've heard that for anything that ever gets tuned. Usually it just feels peppier no matter where you're at in the rev range. And so, yeah, that's a nice little bump. Let's see here. It says that it also optimizes the shift schedule in Broncos with the 10-speed automatic, and it also adds rev matching for anybody with the 7-speed manual. So when you're downshifting, it'll do the fun little rev matching with you. So it's kind of neat. And the best part about it is that it's covered under the 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, so it doesn't affect your warranty. It's $825, not including installation. So I'm not sure. I've flashed vehicles before. I don't know why they would charge you an installation fee. That's kind of weird. But the last little bit is that it has not been approved in California yet for the 2022 Broncos. It apparently is okay for 2021 Broncos, but not 2022 Broncos. So everywhere else in the free America, you're good to go.
It's kind of hilarious. This is like the paywall for your vehicle. It's like, oh yes, you can have this feature on your vehicle, more torque, but you have to pay us $825, and you now can have a few extra horsepowers and some more torques. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, I kind of see what you're saying, but honestly, aftermarket tuners are doing it too. So you could go buy some sort of I mean, I don't know this for a fact for Ford Bronco or the EcoBoost motor, but I'm sure it's out there where you go buy a tuner, you hook it up yourself, Bully Dog or Diablo or Cobb access port. I don't know. I'm throwing out names from the Subaru world that I used to be part of.
Yeah.
And you pay that money yourself and you flash it yourself. And so, and you get these kind of gains with a turbo motor.
It bothers me because it's in-house. It's like, if it came, you guys should have just improved it yourself.
They can't but they're not supposed to bump up the horsepower to compete with their other engine lines, because it mentions here in the article that so it's 330 horse, 385 torque, compared to the 2.7 twin turbo EcoBoost motor they have, which is 330 horse, so it's the same horsepower, and 415 foot-pounds of torque. So it's got the same horsepower and it's down 30 foot-pounds of torque compared to their bigger, badder engine. So
yeah,
that's kind of why they've got that lesser one. And then the other benefit is it doesn't void the warranty. I know that anytime I had to bring my Subaru to the dealer, I had to flash it back to stock so that they didn't know that I was flashing my ECU when it was still under warranty. So, yeah, Tim says that it's known in the state of California to cause cancer. So that's why you can't do it on the 2022 Broncos.
Everything in California causes cancer.
I know. All right. So our next story here is from Jalopnik, and it's the details on the new trimmer version of the Ford Maverick. So Ford's throwing that trimmer package in everything now. You've got it in the actually I haven't seen it in the Bronco yet, but you've got it in the F-150, you've got it in the Super Duties, you've got it in the Ranger, and now it's in the Maverick, which some people might not consider a pickup truck, but it can only be had with the 2-liter EcoBoost engine. And it's only available in the XLT and the Lariat model. So it adds 5 drive modes and trail control, which works like cruise control for off-roading. You get a 1-inch suspension lift, heavy-duty transmission cooler, stronger half shafts, unique springs and shocks, higher clearance, lower front fascia. That's kind of a funny thing to say. Higher clearance, lower fascia, and some steel skid plates. You lose some payload capacity. It goes down from 1,500 to 1,200 pounds, and you cannot option it with the 4,000 pound towing package, which is really weird. So you can only tow 2,000 pounds, which is not very much.
It probably has to do with the shocks and stuff, the suspension upgrades.
Yeah,
it's possible that
great,
maybe
right?
it's too soft or something.
Because I know like Dennis with his Colorado, he's got the Bison package, and it's very similar. He's kind of limited on his towing and all that.
Yeah. Well, 2,000 isn't very much. My Ford Escort way back in the day had a 2,500 pound towing capacity. So, yeah. Let's see. So you also get blacked out badges, smoked headlights and taillights, a unique matte gray grille with yellow accents, and of course, yellow front tow hooks. So
gotta have the yellow. We should send this article to Kia for their tell you
them
ride. That's how you do an off-road package.
It was Santa Cruz, but yeah.
No, Kia, because they're whatever it is, where it's got the 1/4-inch lift for their off-road.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm like, at least a full inch. Come on.
Yeah. And then so what's interesting is that's the trimmer off-road package. You can also just a trimmer appearance package. I don't know if you can get it by itself standalone or if you have to have the off-road package to get the appearance package, but the appearance package adds carbonized gray accents in the paint on the roof and the mirror caps. It says black hood graphics on the doors also. And inside you get some orange accents stitched into your seats. So kind of
can pretend to
interesting.
Be on a Maverick.
Yeah, that's
a
trimmer. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's just like a fake out thing or what. So the off-road package is $3,000. The appearance package is $1,500. So yeah, I'm not sure if you can get them independent of each other.
That's interesting because the what is it? The F350, 250s with the trimmer packages. You get the winch, but it's all done at the dealership.
Yeah.
So it's like
no winch for this guy.
Yeah, no winch. It's kind of disappointing. But I mean, it's a Maverick. Does it need one?
I don't know. It's probably going to be a lot easier to get a Maverick stuck than it is to get a full-size truck stuck.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting enough.
Go prepared with Warren Industries. They produced the first recreational winch in 1959 and lead the industry with their dedication to quality and reliability. When you dig yourself in deep, make sure you have the right tools to get yourself out. Get Warren equipped and go where others can't. Now, let's get ready for adventure and head into our main topic.
Well, We gotta start this off, Brennan, with the fast 5 facts. Easy answers here. New or old vehicle?
Both.
Summer or winter camping?
Ooh. I got a soft spot for snow wheeling. I grew up in Idaho. That we did a lot of that back in the day, and there's definitely something to be said for winter camping.
Yeah, you can only take off so many clothes when you're trying to sleep. Rock, sand, snow, or mud?
Oh man, I have to choose.
Yeah, you gotta choose.
I don't like mud. I absolutely don't like mud. Just not my thing. I'm a rock guy. I like technical rock trails. That's definitely what I do the most.
Favorite vehicle brand?
Oh, I honestly don't have one. I have a soft spot for old Jeeps, old Jeeps though, like my 42 Willys. Not, but I'm not really that picky. I mean, it's all mostly engine in the front, 4 tires. I think you can make anything cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite tire brand?
Currently Milestar. I think they're doing some really interesting things now. I've worked with them a long time. I've ran their tires on everything but my Willys now for, I think, 3 years plus. I mean, been through multiple sets of 40s on my LX45 build. I have nothing but good things to say about them.
And then this is a new one that I'm adding on just for after the Fast 5 facts. Is any recommendations to someone new off-roading?
Keep it simple. That you don't need a whole bunch of fancy stuff to go have fun. I think the cost of entry scares a lot of people away when they see people running, these rigs that are worth as much as a house used to cost.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I think if you stay in it long enough, most of those people all started with nothing. It was cheap, XJs or Toyota pickups or, all that 70s stuff. I started in a, full size 70s Ford pickup. I think it's better to start that way and build your way up than it is just to jump in with, some crazy build that you're afraid to scratch because you have, $100,000 in it or something.
Yeah, I was recently talking to one of my friends who worked at Rainier Arms with me, and he's building a Toyota Tacoma, and I'm like, hey, let's go out and do a run. Well, we can run up to Bethel Ridge, nice and easy, very simple, can have a lot of fun. He's like, oh, I gotta wait till I get lifted in tires. I'm like, dude, you can go out, you can learn how to drive with it, so then you're comfortable. Then as you make it harder, you can push it farther, and your limits where you start out.
And honestly, even the stock Maverick you were talking about with, aired down tires and a little bit of experience is probably going to go more places than most people would ever imagine.
Absolutely.
And
I think
Campo 500 proves it every time.
I think the early Jeep guys that are, kind of that locker stalker mentality where they're all running tiny tires and, throw a couple lunchbox lockers in it. I mean, the places those guys go is amazing. How far they can push those now is just crazy. And so I think that's a lot of fun, for a 4-wheel drive vehicle, not a UTV or ATV kind of realm, which is the other half of this sport lately.
Yeah. Tim saying, especially that Maverick could see 99% of the state.
In Arizona.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, let's learn a little more about you here. How did you get started in off-roading?
I actually got started twice. So I was lucky enough to spend a couple years as a kid living pretty close to Glamis in Southern California, Palm Desert area. And so it was a lot of riding 4-wheelers and 3-wheelers and that kind of stuff when I was young, 9, 10. And then we moved to the middle of nowhere in Idaho when I was, I think, in 5th, 6th grade. And so didn't really do too much until I got into high school. And then it was just, I had a good friend of mine that had a 4-wheel drive pickup, or ended up being a good friend of mine that had a 4-wheel drive pickup, and took me for a ride. And this, they just like plowed the streets, and he was jumping over the the snow berms in the middle of the street and ripping around, Hoonigan before that was a thing. And it just was a sickness since then. I mean, I've been hooked since I was probably 15, 16. So yeah, that was the start. And then I did that, nothing super serious until I got, so I was a wildland firefighter for 10 years, in the Salmon Chalice National Forest, in Idaho, or based out of there. And, so I got to spend those years in a lot of really interesting places, kind of in government vehicles, light and heavy fire engines, support rigs, and then moved on to helicopters. And so I got to do a lot of that kind of adventure, travel, off-road stuff, as a profession, if you will, for years. And then it wasn't until I retired from that I got into kind of the recreational side of things again, and started building my flat fender, basically. And
So what was the first vehicle you took off-road?
first 4-wheel drive. Well, first vehicle I ever took off-road was my first truck. It was a 1981 Toyota 2-wheel drive long bed automatic. It was my mom's old truck, and I inherited it, and I took that thing more places than it should have ever been. But got bit right about that. We got our driver's license when we were, daytime license in Idaho, I think when we were 14, 15. And I didn't have that very long before I bought a 1976 Ford F-150 long bed 4-wheel drive from a friend of mine that had built it up a little bit, had 33s and a decent motor, and was my first manual transmission, all those things. And so that was what I wheeled for years. And then I got tired of the long box, bought the same pretty much exact truck in a short box, and built that through kind of later high school into college, and drove that. Still have that actually back in my parents' ranch in Idaho. I've just kept it. I don't think I've driven it in a couple years now, but yeah, kept that. And so I still have my second 4-wheel drive vehicle ever.
Nice. So what do you drive now? I know you've built some things, you've got some stuff. What is the main thing that you drive right now?
I mean, daily driver, I have a boring plain Jane 2007 Ford pickup that kind of turned. I've always had this thing for full size, regular cab pickups, just the utility of it. I guess that's what I started in. So I kind of like always having one of those around. I did a Dodge, like a 92, I think it was, Dodge Cummins build back on Expo Portal way back. That was probably one of the first things that I built even before the flat fender. And I just have always had one of those, kind of do everything, do it all type trucks around. And that's what I daily pretty much, it just does so many things for me, tow haul, pick up parts, pallets of stuff. And then it's 4-wheel drive, and I live in Colorado now, and winter and all that stuff. So, I recently kind of upgraded a little bit with a slightly newer pickup. And then I was totally lucked out. Facebook was totally stalking me, and found a flip pack camper. Just like,
oh,
I
nice.
swear, like we were like the girlfriend and I were talking about like, oh, it'd be so nice to have a camper on the truck, and I went, and then the marketplace ads start showing up.
The marketplace suggestions, yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And but found one of those local, so it did turn into a nice, I can camp out of it for longer periods of time. I take it over to Easter Jeep for the week and kind of use it as a home base now. I did the Road Warrior thing with the flat fender for a lot of years, where I would drive it over to Moab and wheel for the week and drive it back home and camp out of it and everything. And I was just that gets a little bit crazy at times. It's a different experience. So I kind of try and mix it up, every couple years and try something a little different or put a new spin on something. So the pickup's filling that role now for kind of the tow haul rig.
So what's your most embarrassing moment on the trail? Because we all have one.
Oh, that's pretty easy for me, actually. So I got invited to Ultimate Adventure in 2014 as a reader. You apply, they select you, vet you, you go on this big crazy trip with all these magazine famous people that you've been trying to meet for since you were 15 years old, and you read all their articles and stuff like that. Super intimidating, like experience. And that first year we started in Nebraska, in the Sandhills of Nebraska. And we ended up doing this crazy river crossing thing. And I'm in this like little Jeep on 35s and made it through the first time on my own, and like water over the hood. I don't run a snorkel or anything like that. I'm from the desert. We don't have that stuff here. And kept it running. We went and wheeled the day out past the river. And then we had to come back across, and we had 30 plus rigs, all big built rigs on 40s. And the river was sandy on the bottom. And so it got even deeper. And it was, I don't even know how deep. So deep that it made me nervous. And so we ended up bagging the motor or the intake on the motor as much as we could. And I got Fred Williams he had the big tug truck back then. And he actually pulled me across the river going back. But like the pictures of it, it's actually still, I think, the front image or the header image on my Facebook page. Like the Jeep is, the hood is gone. The water's like coming in the door opening on my buddy. It's half floating at the same time. It was just a super crazy experience, but that was like day one. And so it was tough to take a tow rope that early in the trip, and have to say uncle, but I think it was the right call.
That's awesome.
Actually, I just pulled up that picture. I'm gonna if I can find the upload.
While Ben's looking for that, do you want to share a biggest win on the trail?
Same thing. I took a 1942 Jeep that I rebuilt in my garage on 35s. That trip, I did 3,150 miles total driving it. I drove it to the event. I did the event, and I drove it home in a car that I built in my garage, including the frame, using mostly Craigslist parts and Harbor Freight. So,
oh, wow.
And it was, basically the first thing that I'd ever built from scratch, if you will. It was as complete, I think, as a build pretty much gets, as long as you have a body on it. And so I was pretty proud of that. It was a big accomplishment. And then I guess it worked because they invited me back, and I did it again in 2015. So as the returning reader. Yeah, I took the flat fender twice. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really cool picture. And those who are listening, literally it's water's almost over the hood. There's like a tent on the front or some sleeping.
Yeah, it's like a bedroll tarp thing. I think I had a chair and a sleeping pad in there.
Yeah, it's currently a sponge.
It actually worked out pretty well. the water definitely hit the windshield. So
Yeah.
it was
there's
super deep.
and it's a Willys, so there's no doors. It's
Nope.
your feet. I bet your toes were nice and warm.
Yeah, everything was. I mean, it was a submarine for the most part.
It's awesome.
So, but yeah, it was a
It's
small
fun.
Jeep anyways to take on that trip. I mean, the whole thing with that build was as low and stable and everything I could make it. I mean, it's even on 35s, it's not any taller than a stock Jeep by more than an inch or two. So
Nice.
it's super low. And so that wasn't the best formula for the river.
No. Well, where's your favorite place to go wheeling?
I would say Moab. It's close. That's, kind of the best, easiest escape for me. I've definitely spent the most time there, but I like wheeling everywhere. I mean, we try and do different trips every year. We try to pick somewhere new or different, or do a big trail a different way. Ducey Ursham, Rubicon Trail, snow wheeling up north. I did a big, before I actually did Ultimate Adventure, to convince myself that I could actually do that. I drove the flat fender right after I built it, from Colorado to basically like Superior, Montana, and then wheeled over the divide for 400 miles in the snow with some friends, and then drove it back home.
I've never thought of doing that, going over the divide off-road.
Yeah, it was, there's a big area up there, like Hoodoo Pass, is a really pretty famous one, goes into the Selway River, I think it was. And that's honestly up there, that's a lot of the wheeling, because that's just the only trails they have. I mean, they've suffered so much closure up there that hard stuff is pretty hard to find. And then they have snow 6 months of the year on it all. So
If not
that's
more.
a really popular thing up there.
Yeah, if not more.
Oh yeah.
I go every time we go over the Continental Divide, we stop at the Ringing Rocks. They're just on the other side of the pass. And
So is there any place that you want to go wheeling that you haven't been?
Everywhere. I mean, like we were talking earlier about Patty and Lauren Upton. Like, I mean, my grand bucket list vision is drive around the world. I mean, that's kind of my retirement plan. I want to see more, do more of that style of wheeling. I think in the US we don't have a lot of really long, hard trails. We have the Rubicon, we have the Ducey Ursham, we have some like what are they calling it now? The BTR, the backcountry discovery routes, the all dirt crossings. I remember reading about, who was it back in the day? I remember it being done twice, but it was basically an all dirt border to border US trip from, Mexico to Canada, as much as you can on dirt. I remember that being back in, I think it was like Four Wheeler Magazine, maybe Four Wheel and Sport Utility back in the 90s. There was a guy that did it. And then there was another guy more recently that did it again on a more Western route by California, Nevada border, mainly. Stuff like that. I love off-roading. I wish I could just do it all the time, every day.
Absolutely.
There with you. Well, you did some work at JP Magazine. And what did that all entail?
It wasn't much. It was basically helping mainly Vern Simons, who I met. He did a feature on my flat fender for JP Magazine. We're both early Jeep nuts. We like kind of the same junkyard tech stuff. Yep, that's my Jeep. So we basically collaborated on doing some tech articles that were some of the stuff that we did during the build of my Flatty originally. Like I came up with a way to do a modification for Motorcraft carburetors, to remake the fuel bowl into this baffle system. So it works off-road in any angle. And so we did an article on that. And then I think that was the only one I was really like co-authored through with JP, and then did lots of, features and stories and things like that from Ultimate Adventure and the different vehicles I built and things like that.
So you've built some cool rigs. Can you tell us about some of them? You talked about the flat fender a little bit. Can you tell us about some of the rigs you built, and is any one specifically your favorite?
I guess so. My flat fender that was just up on the page, that's kind of the most infamous of them. And it was a build I did back in about 2011, 2012. It was back in the Pirate 4x4 days, and there was a very, very active Willys subgroup on Pirate, and then there was at least 2 or 3 builds that were done, I guess, all about the same time, that were this similar, low center of gravity design, I guess, if you will. Raised fenders, keeping the lift really low, keep it stable, all the things that seem to make everything work better off-road, especially for a short wheelbase. And so I'll always have a soft spot for that Jeep. I still have it. I still use it, not as much as I should, but I still take it usually to Easter Jeep every year. I do kind of a crazy little underground flat fender run that turned into a big thing, or at least too big of a thing. And we do that every Friday. It's called the Friday Flat Fender Fun Run.
Isn't that the one that Mercedes went on?
Sounds familiar.
No, I think she was talking about one that like goes across the country or something like that.
No. There, it was because she was riding with Mike Hallmark from Hellwig.
Yeah,
he comes on the trip. He's
got a nice build he's built up.
Yep, he's definitely been there a couple times. So yeah, it just turned into this thing, and we all get together on Friday and go drive around in our old Jeeps and have fun and get in trouble. So, lately I've been more focused on basically I call it my Lexus, but there's kind of a funny story behind that. But it was I call it the LX45. It's basically a pseudo FJ45 pickup. Yep, that's it. So I started building that after I got back off of Ultimate Adventure. It was kind of, I guess, everything that I learned on that trip, or those trips in general, just an evolution of, what I thought was better, different. It's definitely a completely different experience than the flat fender, but they're built a little bit similar in that they're, low, no lift, big tires, flat belly, all those kinds of things. But it is it's a larger vehicle, more wheelbase, a little bit more width, surprisingly not much more room. It's so when I did it, I actually, not many people catch it, but so on a regular like FJ45 tub, the doors are always tapered. So the cowl taper goes all the way to behind the doors. And so when I built this one, I actually took all that out. I pie cut the floor and pinched the doors together so they're parallel. So the body's only as wide as the windshield frame. And on an FJ40 tub, that's actually an inch narrower than a flat fender tub. So it's kind of plays a little bit of tricks with your eyes and stuff like that. But it's a small 2-door pickup, if you will, 112-inch wheelbase. It's based on basically an 80 series chassis that I found on Craigslist, again, because they were spying on me or whatever. And it had e-lockers, and I was like, oh, that's the perfect wheelbase. I'll just use that. It's so cheap and easy.
So cheap and easy.
And 3 years later, after hand building a body pretty much from scratch, including the top and everything, I had a pretty cool truck.
That is a really cool truck.
Definitely a really cool truck.
And so, yeah, that picture that's up now is actually on a crazy little frame or trailer ladder frame that I built, I think last year before, because I was kind of tired of driving everywhere, and nobody else does that anymore, really, I don't think. And so when you're the only guy that does that, it kind of changes the trip experience or dynamics or however you want to do that. And I was kind of getting burned out on it. So I just decided to build. I don't really like trailers and I don't really like towing much at all. But I kind of asked myself what I wanted for a trailer. So I built my own design. It's pretty unconventional and not many people get it.
You have to drive. You have to drive over the tire to get to the front.
The big vehicles do. The Lexus does. The flat fender fits in between.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember seeing you build that because I want to say there was someone posted something or tagged you. It was like Fred Williams trailer that he has, and it's like a dually one instead.
Yeah, so he has a dually one that's similar sprung. He got it from one of the guys, I think that was it Advanced Adapters for a long time. But yeah, that's definitely was an influence in mine for sure. Like, you know, and there's a lot of these old, if you dig into kind of the old Jeep history, you know, 50s, 60s pictures, you'll find these like specialized little Jeep hauler trailers. They're all like cobbled together, single axle, super light. They towed them behind cars, you know, big 50s sedans and stuff like that. But it was just a very specialized trailer. And I decided to go that way, you know, instead of a utility type trailer. I had one of those. I hated it. It seemed to always have issues. It was worn out. I'll give you that, but I just didn't enjoy that very much. You know, it was always kind of big and clunky. And so I wanted something light. And the house that I'm at now, we don't have a ton of extra parking. So I needed something that I could kind of fish back into this alley parking space by hand. So I can actually lift up the front of that trailer by myself and just walk it back in the corner and pull it out and hook it up just by lifting it up. I don't have to back up to it or anything like that when it's empty.
So have does it have a 5,000 pound axle, or what does it have for an axle? A 7? Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it actually is rigid mounted too, which was really controversial. So the axle goes right through the middle of the frame rail. No camber on it. And that's why it sits so low. And so it just it's basically, you can think of it like a gigantic car dolly. So the vehicle's always strapped to the tires, and then the vehicle suspension acts like a huge dampener. So
gotcha.
It doesn't, I mean,
that makes a lot of sense.
So it's not bouncing around.
No, not at all. Honestly,
what if it's empty with no vehicle on it driving around?
My general solution is I didn't build a trailer to tow it around empty.
Absolutely.
B is you can let some air out of the tires to take the bounce out. But
yeah,
honestly, you watch any trailer that's reasonable sized go down the road when they're empty and they bounce all over the place.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not like trailers were the pinnacle of suspension design. You know, I mean, they don't even have shocks for gosh sakes. So,
yeah,
you know, I actually got really burned out on that project because I tried to talk to people about it and get like feedback and ideas and things, and everybody hated it. You know, it was one of those projects that just people don't get it. You know, that'll never work.
When something's unconventional, people don't understand, and you're going to get that hate. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So I built it.
Get along?
I built it pretty quick, and I didn't really do a ton of socials on it. And then I try and post whenever I use it because it's been the best trailer I've ever had. I mean, I haven't had a ton of trailers, but I mean, I've towed it back and forth to California 3 times now. You know, over to Moab, over to San Hollow. It's just a great little trailer for me.
So you've built some custom rigs. Has that done anything for you, like on a personal level, business level, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of fell into my own little side business with it. I'm a mechanical engineer for a day job, so I you know I like building stuff. I like inventing stuff. I do it more for fun on the off-road side of things, but I also enjoy the problem solving. I think I have a little bit different view on some of it, maybe a little more open-minded, maybe a little bit less about the marketing and the branding and all that stuff than most people. And so, it turned into a nice little side gig for me. I have finally built a little website. I don't even know, 20, 28, 30 products now total of things I've done. I sell probably more than I should. It's turned into quite the little operation. I don't employ anybody. I just do it all myself in my spare time. I use it to fund my addiction or hobby or however you want to phrase it. And I like, it's given me more opportunities to make more ideas. I take most of the whatever I make from it and just reinvest it into making new products, basically new ideas. And I have some pretty good contacts from and places to work with through my day job. So I've been able to make some pretty cool stuff lately. And then I fab on the side too.
So apparently you're also making some recovery gear and things like that. Can you tell us a little about what you're producing there?
Yeah, I find that area really interesting. I like that stuff, the recovery aspect of it, especially when we got, I think like we were all saying earlier, we got started with stuff that got stuck a lot. We didn't have 40s and lockers and all the stuff back in the day. And so I definitely, put in my time doing, hard manual clunky recoveries with like high lift jacks and, using them as winches or jacking the vehicle up and tipping it over or, all the things that go with that. I didn't get my first winch until I built the flat fender was my first. I bought a $175 Bellevue winch off of Craigslist from a guy that was local. And that was the first winch I ever had. And so it just kind of, once I got playing with that, using it more, other than using winches on some of the fire trucks and stuff like that, that was about the only exposure I'd had up to that point. So it's just an interesting area for me. And so I think I have a little bit different viewpoint on it perhaps. And I tend to kind of see solutions in the current market with things that are being missed. And then so one of those, we were talking about it earlier, but it's like the low friction ring concept, which is really popular now. And my twist on it is basically this little block that goes into the assembly so the ring can't fall out.
Yeah.
So no matter what, the ring can't tip out like it typically does. That's a big problem with low friction rings when tension changes. So that was probably my first, I think, recovery gear specific product. And I just put together a little kit. It ended up being a lot cheaper and more, or should I say more affordable than most of the other products on the market. And I think it addresses more issues. And so that was kind of the takeoff from that. And then beyond that, now I have these new Shackle Adapters. It's basically a soft shackle receiver adapter that fits in a receiver tube and properly provides protection and loading for a soft shackle to directly attach to the hitch pin. It's all really nice 5-axis machining and safe radiuses in all the critical areas, things like that.
I was just going to ask that. So it's chamfered on the inside, so you could pull all different directions with it.
Yes, and you can pull all different directions without resetting. You know, I think that's pretty critical. Some of the other devices on the market, I think, are going in the right direction, but they all of them generally have a hard radius if you change directions. And if I have a vehicle that's in a recovery situation and is hooked up and being recovered, I don't generally want to have to stop and re-rig if I don't have to. And so
Yeah,
I think my
absolutely.
device does a little bit better job. And frankly, it eliminates the extra connection point that's really common in a lot of aftermarket systems. You know, it connects the soft shackle right to the hitch pin, which is generally the most direct you can get, and it's balancing safety. You know, back in the day, we used to do you know, you could hook just the right strap right to the pin, but that's not very safe because the sharp edges on the edge of the receiver hitch. So,
Well, and looking at it, it also gives you space in between that pin, so it helps support that pin a little more, so that it
which
won't.
is very critical. Yeah, a standard trailer pin definitely will bend if loaded in the middle at these type of loads. Yeah, so this provides, you know, generous chamfers and radiuses and diameters. That's all kind of got the blessing from the rope manufacturers and stuff to make the shackle as strong as possible in that envelope.
Yeah, my wife loves the name that you call it, the Sarah.
Sarah, yeah. I really hate naming stuff, but it's sometimes that's the whole battle, is just coming up with a good name that people remember.
Yeah. Recently, you had though an article about this here.
Yeah. So that's what I call the taller jack. So that was born out of a campfire type conversation with some friends, and it was the gentleman had bought a ARB hydraulic jack, and it had leaked all over the back of his expensive Jeep, and he was none too happy about it.
Oh,
And
no.
so, you know, it basically, that was the start of it. Was we all liked the package of the ARB jack. You know, it definitely gets very compact, which the taller jack does also. You know, it you know, collapses down to about 25 inches tall, and has a range, as in this picture, to just over 50 inches. And then it has 15 inches of stroke in that range, anywhere in that range, from 6 to 50 inches. So it's just it's what I would call a perimeter jack, or a recovery style jack, more than a, you know, like a repair jack, if you will, like something that would go under a car, you know, to lift an axle. It's more of a, you know, a farm jack package. So yeah, Harry Wagner at Four Wheeler really fell in love with that thing when I showed it to him, and he was kind enough to write that excellent article.
Yeah, I remember I'd been friends with you. I found you on Facebook when you came out with the block there, or was when, I think it was when Factor 55s came out, and yours kept getting brought up, and I was like, oh, I got to look at this. I went and I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that's a cool take, and a nice easy solution for those that don't want to go out and buy another donut.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's a little tiny bit width specific to work right. It's not just, so the other things it does, one of the issues with low friction rings and soft shackles is if there's any difference in diameter or different in width between the ring and what you're hooking to, you can create a hot spot on the outside edge of the low friction ring. Most rings have a fairly gentle radius in that area, or they should. But if they don't, and you're attached to something very small on one side compared to the ring, you actually get that hot spot. And so the block also helps keep the soft shackle the proper width apart, and helps eliminate friction, extra friction, I'll say, from the system. And then obviously helps from the tip out problem. and then just helps in the general rigging. It kind of holds everything together, and I just find it easier to work with. So it's the only one I've seen so far that does actually prevent tip out. Like there's some other products on the market they're trying, but I haven't. I've seen the same issue come up a couple times, even with some of the other products. So this was just my take on it. It was just me doing. I mean, I did it with a piece of wood and Velcro tape the first time. Like I was just like, hey, come out 5 minutes later and posted because it was a problem. Like that's what everybody was complaining about was the tip out issue. When tension changed, was the ring would just fall over. And I'm like, yep, that actually happens. And
then it's a flying projectile and you'll die because you'll get bit by a donut.
I mean, the cool thing about the low friction ring is it actually, as long as you stop when the ring tips out, it's still a closed, if you will, system. Because the line goes through the soft shackle. If you don't stop though, the winch line saws through the soft shackle really quick.
Yes. Yes.
So, they all have their little quirks, but I think the system that I have is probably the best on the market so far.
Nice. So I've seen, being friends with you on Facebook, you 3D print a lot of prototypes. That. Like currently, like your Bellevue winch, you machined out some new clutch handles, I think it is.
Yeah, I did a new brake lever.
3D printed the brake lever. You 3D printed like different prototypes to see if it worked. I being a guy that 3D prints, I love that. Like, is that hard? Is it I
mean, I don't think so. I think the cost of entry now is so low that anybody can do it. I mean, I started with a $200 Creality Ender 3 and used that for many years. And it did fine for me. I do have a significant background in 3D modeling, SolidWorks, all those types of things. If you go down on my webpage, I'm sure one of the total buggy SolidWorks buggies that I've done will be on the front page towards the bottom. So I take that really far. That's what I do for a living is 3D design for machines, basically. So I can take that farther than most people. And I've been lucky enough to have some connections in the industry to get models for like engines and axles and things like that to really make that process pretty easy. So I use it I always kick myself for not using it even more. I mean, it's just part of the process now. I can 3D print a prototype, do a test fit, and then send it off to laser for cutting usually, or machine shop or whatever. It's just super easy process these days.
It's nice being able to 3D print stuff. Like my wife's like, oh, I want to go buy a spice rack. I'm like, let me print one.
Yep. Well, and especially, I mean, that kind of stuff is, and hopefully the automotive world catches up, especially the off-road world. The sharing of files in the normal stuff like a spice rack is, I mean, you go to Thingiverse or whatever, you and there's just 10,000 different options already. You don't even have to do the design work yourself. You just pick the right one or pick one that's close. I think it's additive manufacturing is going to be the next thing. It already is, but it'll just continue to grow in its market share.
Yeah, and filaments seem to be improving more and more. Like I've heard of some filaments where they've got like metal dust in them to help add strength, and it's like, well, it's like it's only getting better. And then they're talking 3D sand printing now, and
oh yeah, I mean the stuff they're doing on a commercial level is crazy, and all that's just going to trickle down. I always, with most of my stuff, I always tell people it's design the part around the material, not the material around the part.
Yeah,
it's just a different way of thinking, especially with plastics. I mean, I run lots of 3D printed gizmos in all my vehicles, door handles and knobs and cell phone mounts and everything like that. And I've never really had to get too far into the materials. I print what prints quickly, easily, and cheaply, and that's PLA. And now PLA Plus is pretty much, spanning that gap even more. But it's just simple,
We talked about the Ford Maverick earlier in the news, and when Ford was first introducing the Maverick, they talked about how they had notches and crevices around the interior of the Maverick for people to 3D print things to clip
Yep.
in or slide in or wedge in into their vehicle. That was the first time I'd heard of a manufacturer doing something like that. I've never followed up and looked into it, but I'm curious now. I forgot all about it, but I'm curious to maybe do some investigating and see what people have done.
I think Ford actually had a some kind of file share system that was coming with the Bronco and other things, where they're kind of getting into that, where they're starting to be more open with the data you need to design the parts, also and also sharing, parts for widgets, like I want a cell phone holder or whatever.
I heard about them doing that with the at the aftermarket. Like if you wanted to, you could sign up early enough after they announced the Bronco, and your company would receive the information it needed to build bumpers and all the accessories like that.
Yeah, most of that on an OEM level is done through the SEMA Tech Exchange. So it's a service you sign up for, and Ford might have a different one, but that's the one I'm most familiar with. Is you get your little approval system, and then you basically like give them a use case, and then they send you the files for whatever you want to design for them. And thankfully, OEMs are being better with that stuff now.
Yeah, it's nice because I remember like with the Jeep Wranglers when they came out, there wasn't a whole lot of support from Jeep for building an aftermarket. With the JKs, it seemed like it was a couple years, and then 2 or 3 years after they came out, more and more aftermarket support started coming, and bumpers and skids after other people had 3D modeled them and all that.
Yeah, I don't know why OEMs don't make that just, I mean, I kind of know, but I mean, it seems like it would be nothing but beneficial for them to release that to everybody. I mean,
It's definitely been beneficial for Ford.
Yeah, let everybody design that stuff. I mean, I'd love to have access to all that data, especially, for
Nissan would really benefit from that. That's for sure. I know like Aaron with his Frontier there's not a whole lot of aftermarket support. If the stuff was out there, more companies would have the stuff to be able to design it, and it'd be like, boom, there you go. Here's bumper, here's a lift, here's this, and boom.
Yep.
And easier to get into doing that kind of stuff for sure. Yeah.
And it'll end up being higher quality products too.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. You've also been restoring some old school winches. Any reason why you picked old school winches or?
Nobody really made anything for them anymore. I had one. I started to have, issues with motors and parts, and there's this early Jeep kind of movement right now for kind of classic parts, keeping them looking kind of, they were like from the 40s, 50s, 60s. And so those old, and honestly, new winches are expensive. And so the old winches, when you look at how much a new Warren 8274 costs, when you want that classic look, you can buy a lot of old winches for that. And so, and they're good winches. I mean, that's the end of it. I mean, they're the old Bellevue winches, which is what the 8274 evolved from. And Warren bought out Bellevue at manufacturing for their winch design. It really hasn't changed a whole bunch into the 8274. And then the 8274 ran for 70 years now, right? Like we just had the 70th anniversary.
Was it 70th
version?
Or 75th?
Yeah.
I think it was 70th. I think they're going into their 75th here soon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the winches started in 59 from Bellevue, but I mean, they've been around a long, long time. And so there's not any parts for them. Some of the stuff is pretty easy, like the bearings and the seals and all that stuff was pretty off the shelf. But like a motor was the big one. Like nobody really made a correct motor for those old winches. And then the old winches were, they were only power in. There was no power out until 1973 ish, when there was 1 year, 1.5 years of the 8200 winch, which was basically the Bellevue winch with a ratchet brake and a two-way motor, but it's kind of a red-headed stepchild winch, and there's not a whole bunch of them. But so with I found a company in the Midwest that makes motors, was able to work with them to get a motor that bolts in, but runs both directions, has all the other little things that it needs for armature, retaining the armature and stuff like that. And so did that. And then the little parts like the brake lever and stuff like that, like Ben mentioned with the 3D printing, it was pretty easy for me to reverse engineer those and get them machined and available again.
I've got an old Bellevue sitting here in the garage with nothing for it to go on. Oh wait, I have a Jeep truck sitting on the side of the house.
You sure do.
That'd be
Yep,
perfect.
You sure do.
Yes,
Perfect for that.
Perfect.
I probably have like an old Warren or Bellevue with like that truck with the old like yellow and black ads from like Popular Mechanics back in the day.
Yeah,
I have a pretty good collection of those that I've gathered up over the years, but there were some really cool ones.
Yeah. Well, Brennan, really appreciate you coming on. I've got for our listeners in the links, I've got links to the builds for the LX45 on Pirate and Expo Portal, and on Pirate for the Willys as well, along with links to Brennan's personal pages. So where can our listeners find you? Where are you on?
So I have a small web store that I run, which is basically brennans-garage.com. That's where you can purchase anything that I make. And then as far as social media goes, I'm bad at it, but I do have a Brennan's Garage Facebook page, but then also just Brennan Metcalf on Facebook, Brennan Metcalf on Instagram. Those are the two major platforms that I use. I do have a YouTube channel. There isn't much on it, but it's just Brennan's Garage. Hopefully that'll grow here shortly in the future. I've been thinking about trying that out for a platform.
As before we close, I'm curious here real quick. Your shirt has kind of popped up in and out of the video, and it reminds me of Ben because the numbers aren't in order, and it reminds me of Ben because Ben is dyslexic. Can you tell us what your shirt is all about?
Yeah, so this was kind of a gag shirt we did. It's actually, I gotta at least try and sell a couple, but they are on the store. But it's the firing order from an Oddfire V6, the old Buick 225s. And so if you notice there's a couple spaces and then a single space, then a couple spaces. So the Oddfire is actually differences in firing in the crank rotation on those motors, because it was a cut down. They just basically cut two cylinders off of V6, or off of V8 to make a V6.
V8, yeah.
Yep. And so this is what it ends up with, and it has this stutter in it when it runs, and it's a very distinctive sound, kind of Harley-ish, half not running, half running. And so we did these funny firing order shirts, just as a, only the weirdest Jeep guy ever is going to get that from a shirt, but those are the people you want to be friends with, let me tell you.
Well, I just searched Oddfire V6 sound on YouTube,
Yep.
and there's several videos. So after we're done here, I'm gonna play some because I'm super curious now.
Yeah, it's got like this little rhythmic stutter to it that everybody loves. It's like that potato sound.
And what vehicles did those come in?
So the Buick V6, basically, it was called the Dauntless engine. Was kind of it would have been the 60s, 67-ish, CJ5, and then onto the Jeepster Commando had them. It was their V6 answer. before they went to the straight 6. So it
Okay.
fit in the short nose that the 4-cylinder still had. So you could get, basically the options were a small 4-cylinder or then the V6, and they were actually a great little motor. Decent compression, made good power, and so they've been very popular for Jeep swaps for eons. That's what my little flatty has in it.
Probably leaks a whole lot less than the Tornado.
No.
No.
At least mine, no. I don't know. Yeah, so we did the shirts, and you can get that, or I've got some hats and some other stuff that for the store and stuff like that in there. But hopefully this was more like to try and figure out how to do shirts for me.
Gotcha.
To work with all those services, and try to find a mechanism for that, because I definitely have lots of other ideas for fun shirts and merch type stuff. That's a big thing right now, so it's always fun.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and we're also glad that we got a bunch of questions and comments from people. I don't know if you saw, but a couple different people commented about having stuff that you sell from your website.
I saw that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's still a trip when I see that stuff in the real world, especially if I don't exactly it started off, a lot of it was just friends buying stuff, but that turned into a lot more than that now. I think I've sold over 1,000 disc brake conversion kits, just in the original version that I did for early Jeeps, that I did for my flat fender personally back in the day. And people just bugged me about it enough, and I just had a slight tweak on how to do it. So now we have all the stuff. Hopefully more coming.
nice. Well, we appreciate everybody else out there who stuck with us and listened live on the show. And if you're listening to this not live, remember, you can tune in at 7:00 every Monday. Check our show out. You can also check it out on Overland Radio. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you're sharing us. Make sure you're subscribing, doing whatever you got to do, clicking the bell. I don't remember all the different things you have to do to follow along, but do those things, and you'll get notified every time we go live. Appreciate you guys. God bless America.
Don't forget to visit Patriot Patch and join the Patch of the Month Club. Check out our Gaia affiliate link for up to 40% off. Also, don't forget to head over to Warren Medical Gear Outfitters and Colby Valve to see all their great gear. We're a proud part of the Firearms Radio Network. Got a comment or question? Send it to us through our webpage at firearmsradio.net or through our social media channels by searching for Offroad Podcast. Also, you can listen to us live at overlandradio.com Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. When off-road, please remember to have fun, tread lightly, be safe, and courteous. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, no problem. Have a good one.
Yep, we'll talk to you later.
All right.